The abandoned ship, the ship, floated in silence, far above the human colony world of Arden Prime. It was not just any ship, it was a massive alien dreadnought, a warship that once struck fear across the galaxy. But now, it was nothing more than cold metal drifting in orbit. The engines were dead. The power core was empty. Even the strongest engineers said the same words: it cannot be fixed. For years, different alien races had tried. They scanned it with their best machines, probed its systems, and even cut open its armor to study the inside. Nothing worked. The ship remained lifeless, a hollow shell of glory long gone. Finally, the galaxy gave up on it, but humans did not. To most aliens, it was strange. Why would humanity waste time on a broken ship? Why keep something that could not move, could not fight, could not even breathe fire like it once did? Some mocked them, whispering that humans were desperate scavengers. Others feared that one day humans might discover a secret. No one else could. And then came the boy. His name was Elias Verne. He was only 14, small and thin, with pale eyes that saw nothing. Elias was blind from birth. To many, blindness was a curse. But to him, it was simply the way the world had always been. He had learned to walk, to run, to live, using sound, touch, and a strange inner sense that often guided him where others stumbled. Every evening, when the sun dipped below Arden Prime's mountains, Elias would slip away from the colony and make his way toward the spaceport. His hands brushed against walls, rails, and cool steel as he followed the path he knew by heart. Workers often saw him, but they never stopped him. The boy was going to the ship. The abandoned alien dreadnought rested in Dock 9, held in place by massive clamps. To others, it was a graveyard of cold machinery. To Elias, it was something else. The first time he touched it, he felt warmth. His small hand brushed against the black metal, and though it should have been cold as ice, he felt a pulse, a beat, like a heart hidden deep inside. At first, he thought it was his imagination, but when he pressed his palm harder against the hull, the feeling grew stronger. And then he heard it, not with his ears, but inside his mind, a faint whisper, a hum, a rhythm, like a song sung from a great distance. The sound was weak, almost broken, but it was real. Elias gasped and pulled away. For a long time, he stood in silence, heart pounding. The ship was supposed to be dead, but to him it was not. He returned the next night, and the night after that. Each time he placed his hands on the ship's hull, each time he felt that same hidden heartbeat, and each time he listened to the whispers, soft and unclear, but always there. One night, as his fingers traced the carved alien markings on the hull, tiny lights flickered inside the ship. They glowed faintly through cracks in the plating, only for a second, before dying again. Elias smiled. He knew what that meant. The ship had answered him, but no one else believed him. When Elias told the engineers, they laughed. "Boy, the ship is dead. You only think you feel something." The aliens scoffed louder. "A blind human child claims to wake the ship. Impossible." Yet Elias kept going back. The galaxy had abandoned the dreadnought, but the boy had not. Each touch, each whisper, seemed to feed strength back into the giant machine. And though Elias could not see the mocking eyes around him, he did not need to. He knew what he felt. The ship was alive. Something deep inside it was waiting for him. And then came the night when the ship stirred for the first time. Elias stood alone in Dock 9, both hands pressed against the hull. The whispers grew louder, like words just beyond reach. His heart raced, his breath shook, and then a soft hum filled the air. The ground trembled, metal groaned. Sparks of light danced across the surface of the dreadnought. One by one, ancient lights blinked on inside its vast body. For a moment, Dock 9 glowed like a sunrise in the dark. The ship was not dead, not anymore. Elias fell to his knees, trembling, tears streaming from his blind eyes. He could feel the joy inside the machine, the relief, the awakening. It was as if it had been sleeping for centuries, waiting for a touch gentle enough, human enough, to call it back. Somewhere in the colony below, alarms began to ring. The impossible had happened. The abandoned ship had answered. To the blind, boy's touch. Asterisk whispers in the dark after the night the dreadnought lit up. Dock 9 became the most watched place on Arden Prime. Guards stood at every corner. Engineers from across the colony rushed in, recording every flicker, every hum, every vibration from the massive alien ship. Yet, after the lights faded, the ship went silent again. The aliens shook their heads. It was nothing but leftover energy, they said. But Elias knew better. The blind boy returned, his steps slow but certain, guided by the echoes of the spaceport. He ignored the whispers of the crowd and walked straight to the dreadnought. People stared at him as if he were a strange puzzle. A blind child touching a ship that all great races had abandoned. What could he do? Elias pressed his hand against the cold hull once more, and instantly the whispers came back. They flowed into his mind, soft and gentle, like a melody half forgotten. They were not words he understood, but feelings, sorrow, loneliness, long waiting. The ship was not just a machine, it was alive in some hidden way, and it was calling out to him. "Why me?" Elias whispered under his breath. The ship answered, with a faint vibration, like a heartbeat. He smiled. He was not alone. News spread quickly across the colony. Reporters, scientists, and alien observers all came to see the boy who claimed he could hear a ship speak. Some came out of curiosity, others came to laugh, but a few came with fear in their eyes. If the ship really responds to him, an alien, officer muttered, then humanity is touching powers it does not understand. The humans ignored the warnings. They had seen the lights with their own eyes. They knew Elias was not lying, so they began to test him. They placed him before the dreadnought, with recorders capturing every sound. "Touch the ship again," they ordered. "Tell us what happens." Elias obeyed. His hands slid across the hull. For a moment, nothing. Then a low hum filled the dock, faint but real. Lights blinked inside the ship, like stars struggling to shine through clouds. The aliens gasped. Impossible. The humans cheered. It's alive. But the ship only stirred when Elias touched it. When others tried, nothing happened. The dreadnought remained silent to everyone else. This frightened the aliens. If it answers only to him, then the ship belongs to humanity, one whispered. Do you realize what that means? No race can control it except theirs. Whispers spread across the galaxy. Governments sent spies. Fleets began to circle Arden Prime, watching closely. Some wanted the boy protected. Others wanted him silenced. But Elias knew nothing of politics. To him, the ship was a lonely voice in the dark, and he was its only friend. One night, when the spaceport was quiet and the guards were gone, Elias returned. He sat beside the massive hull, his small hand pressed against it. This time, the whispers were stronger. He did not just feel sadness, he felt memories. Flashes of stars, of great battles, of races long gone. He saw in his mind images of fire raining across worlds, and then silence, as if the ship itself had mourned the death of its crew. Elias shivered. "You're not just a ship," he whispered. "You're alive. You're waiting." The hum deepened. A pulse of light spread across the hull like a breath. Elias felt warmth rise from the cold metal, and for a brief second he swore he heard a voice. It was faint, broken, like static in his head, but clear enough to make his heart race. Human. He gasped. For the first time the ship had spoken. The next morning the colony was in chaos. Scientists demanded to study the boy's brain. Aliens demanded the ship be destroyed before it awakened fully. But the humans refused. "This is our moment," said Captain Lyra, a Terran officer who stood by Elias. "The galaxy gave up on this ship. We did not, and now it answers to one of our own." Still, fear spread among the alien delegates. They remembered the legends. They spoke of the dreadnoughts, builders, an ancient race said to vanish when their ships fell silent. If the ship lived again, it might bring back powers the galaxy had forgotten and feared. And in the middle of it all was one blind boy. That night, Elias returned again, despite warnings. As he touched the ship, the whispers grew louder than ever. The boy closed his pale eyes and whispered back, "I will not leave you." The dreadnought responded with a sound that shook the dock. Lights rippled across its vast body, glowing brighter, stronger, more alive than before. Systems flickered awake. Engines rumbled deep within. The floor trembled beneath Elias's feet. He laughed with joy, tears falling from his sightless eyes. "You're alive. You're really alive." But far above, hidden in the darkness of space, enemy ships were watching, and not everyone was happy that the miracle had begun. The miracle awakens. The dock shook with energy as the alien dreadnought stirred once more. For years, it had been a tomb, silent, cold, abandoned. But now, as Elias pressed both hands against the ancient hull, life rippled through the giant machine. Like fire waking inside stone, lights burned brighter than before, racing along the armor plates. Panels once thought dead unlocked with a hiss of air. The massive ship, feared by the galaxy long ago, was no longer silent. The humans stared in awe. The aliens, however, trembled in fear. "This should not be possible," hissed a Zorathian scientist, his tendrils curling nervously. "The ship obeys the blind human child. Not us, not anyone else, only him." The leaders whispered among themselves. If the dreadnought truly belonged to the boy, then it belonged to humanity. And if it belonged to humanity, the balance of power in the galaxy would never be the same. But Elias knew nothing of politics, nothing of the growing fear in alien hearts. He only knew the ship was speaking louder now. The whispers in his mind had become a voice, still broken, still faint, but clearer with each touch. "Alone, waiting, friend." The words brought tears to his blind eyes. He could feel the loneliness in the ship. Centuries of silence pressing down like a weight. "I'm here," Elias whispered back. "I'll stay." And then, something extraordinary. Haven't the ship answered? Not with a hum, not with a flicker, but with a song. A low rising tone filled the dock, echoing through every wall, vibrating in every chest. It was not mechanical. It was alive, like the voice of a great being stretching after endless sleep. Humans covered their ears in shock. Aliens backed away in terror. Only Elias smiled. To him it was beautiful. The Terran officer, Captain Lyra, stepped forward, her voice steady but sharp. Elias, ask it to show us more. Can it move? Elias tilted his head. I don't ask, I just listen. He pressed his palms harder against the hull. But I'll try. Silence fell. The boy's lips moved, whispering softly to the ship. No one else understood the words, but the dreadnought did. A deep rumble rolled through its frame. Ancient engines coughed like sleeping giants. Sparks of blue light erupted from the thrusters, and then, with a groan that shook Arden Prime itself, the ship shifted. For the first time in 100 years, the dreadnought moved. Panic spread. Sirens wailed across the colony. Guards shouted. Orders. The dock trembled as clamps strained to hold the massive vessel in place. Release it, cried one human engineer. Destroy it before it wakes, shouted an alien commander. But the ship was already awake. Its lights blazed like 1,000 suns, and its voice thundered inside Ilias's mind. Alive, again. The boy stumbled, clutching his head as the sound roared inside him, yet he smiled through the pain. Yes, you're alive. The crowd watched in horror and wonder as the dreadnought rose against its restraints. Metal screamed as the clamps cracked. Sparks rained down like stars. Captain Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. Stand down, the boy is in control. But was he? The aliens were not convinced. A council of delegates gathered in the control tower overlooking Dock 9. This is dangerous, growled a scaled Varak warlord. If humanity alone commands the ship, no other race will be safe. Then we must act before it is too late, said another. The child must be removed. The ship must be taken or destroyed. Outside, fleets were already gathering in orbit. Silent warships drifted above Arden Prime, their weapons watching, waiting. Inside the dock. Ilias pressed his forehead to the ship's cold surface. He was exhausted. His small body shook, but his heart was full. You were never broken, he whispered. You were waiting for someone to listen. And I will. The dreadnought's lights pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, like a giant echoing his promise. That night, something happened that no one expected. Elias was led inside the dreadnought for the first time. The massive doors groaned open, and a ramp extended toward him. Gasps filled the dock as the ship itself invited him in. The boy walked slowly, guided by the hum in his head. Captain Lyra walked beside him, hand on her weapon, ready for anything. Inside, the corridors glowed with pale blue light. Dust fell as ancient systems reawakened. Symbols in alien languages shimmered along the walls, shifting into shapes that even humans could begin to understand. It knows we're here, Elias said softly. It's happy. Deep in the control room, the ship's core pulsed with life. When Elias touched the console, the entire vessel responded. Screens lit up. Engines roared. Weapon systems hummed like predators stretching their claws. And then the dreadnought spoke, again clearer, louder, impossible to deny. Human. Captain, the galaxy had abandoned this ship. But now, under the touch of a blind boy, it had found a new master in the shadows of space. Enemy fleets prepared their strike. They would not let this miracle continue. But the dreadnought was awake now, and it was no longer alone. Asterisk, the threat, the news spread across the galaxy faster than light. The abandoned dreadnought, the ship every race had declared dead, was alive again. And worse, it answered only to a blind human boy. For some, it was a miracle. For others, it was a threat too dangerous to ignore. Above Arden Prime, alien fleets began to gather. Massive warships drifted in orbit, their weapons pointed toward the human colony. To outsiders, they claimed they were observing, but everyone knew the truth. They were preparing to strike. Inside Dock 9, Elias stood in the glowing corridors of the dreadnought. His pale eyes were useless, but he did not need them. He felt the ship guiding him, every step marked by gentle pulses of sound inside his mind. Captain Lyra walked beside him, her hand tight on her pistol. Behind them, human engineers and soldiers followed nervously, their boots echoing on metal floors. "This ship is waking faster than we expected," one engineer whispered. "Systems we can't even name are activating on their own." "Because of him," another muttered, nodding toward Elias. The boy reached the command chamber. He placed his hand on the glowing console, and the ship answered. Lights flared, engines rumbled. 1,000 systems came alive in harmony, and then came the voice, "Danger, coming." Ilios's heart raced. Who? What danger? The ship answered with a flash of images in his mind. Alien fleets surrounding Arden Prime, weapons armed, preparing to destroy them before the miracle was complete. "They want to kill you," Elias whispered. His small hands trembled on the console. "They want to kill us both." On the surface, human leaders argued with the alien council. "This is our discovery," shouted a Terran diplomat. "You all abandoned the ship. Humanity did not. It belongs to us." A tall insectoid alien clicked angrily. "The dreadnought is too dangerous. If it obeys only humans, then no race is safe. We cannot allow this weapon to exist again." Captain Lyra's voice cut through the noise, calm but sharp. "It's not just a weapon, it's alive. And if you try to kill it, you'll be killing a child too." The council grew silent at that. But silence was not agreement. Ships in orbit continued to charge their weapons. Elias stayed inside the dreadnought, listening to its whispers. He felt its fear. It did not want to fight. It did not want to destroy. It only wanted to live again, to have a friend after endless centuries of silence. "They don't understand you," Ilias said softly. "But I do. I won't let them hurt you." The ship's lights pulsed in answer, like a heartbeat in rhythm with his own. Night fell on Arden Prime. The colony streets emptied as citizens watched the sky, where alien warships glimmered like dark stars. Rumors spread that an attack was coming before dawn, that humanity's miracle would be crushed before it could change the galaxy. Inside Dock 9, Captain Lyra paced restlessly. Soldiers checked their rifles. Engineers whispered about emergency power shields. But deep down, they knew if the alien fleets attacked, the colony would not survive unless the dreadnought awakened fully. That night, Elias could not sleep. He returned once more to the command chamber. The whispers in his mind were urgent now, faster, sharper. Protect, danger, death. The boy placed both hands on the glowing console. "Then wake up, please. Wake up before they destroy you." The ship trembled. Light surged across its body. Energy rippled like waves through the dock. For a moment, the whole structure shook as if the dreadnought were breathing harder, faster, preparing for something. Elias gasped as visions filled. His mind again images of giant weapons, shields strong enough to block whole fleets, and engines that could tear through space itself. The ship was ready to defend itself. Far above, enemy fleets received the order, strike before the humans. Awaken the monster. Dozens of ships turned their weapons toward Arden Prime. Beams of energy gathered at their cannons, glowing brighter, deadlier. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. But before they could fire, the abandoned dreadnought answered. A massive shield erupted around Dock 9, glowing like a golden sun. The alien weapon struck it, but the energy dissolved harmlessly, like waves crashing on a cliff. The galaxy's most powerful fleets stared in horror. The ship is awake. Inside, Elias fell to his knees, gasping for air. His small body shook, but he smiled through his exhaustion. "You protected me," he whispered. "You protected us all." The ship's voice filled his mind, strong now, steady, together. Not alone. Captain Lyra rushed to him, helping him stand. "Elias, what did you do?" He smiled faintly. "I didn't do anything. It chose to fight for us." Above Arden Prime, fleets began to scatter. Some retreated in fear, others prepared for a second strike. The galaxy was now divided. Some saw the ship as hope, others as doom. But one thing was clear: the boy and the dreadnought could no longer be ignored. Asterisk. Humanity's miracle touched the sky above Arden Prime, burned with enemy fire. Alien fleets circled like vultures, their weapons glowing, their commanders shouting orders. To them, the dreadnought was too dangerous to live. But inside Dock 9, the impossible had already happened. The abandoned ship, silent for centuries, was alive again. Its shields had held against the galaxy's strongest weapons. And at its heart stood a blind boy named Elias, hands pressed against a console that glowed like a living star. The ship's voice filled his mind, steady now, no longer broken. Enemy, danger, protect. Elias trembled. He was only 14. He had no training, no weapons, no power. But the ship did, and it was waiting for him. Captain Lyra stood behind him, her jaw tight, her eyes fixed on the glowing walls. "Elias, they're coming again. Can the ship stop them?" The boy swallowed hard. He did not know if he could command it, but he did not need to. He only needed to listen. "I trust you," he whispered to the ship. "Do what you must." Above, the enemy fired again. Hundreds of beams lit the sky, converging on Arden Prime. And then, the dreadnought moved. For the first time in a century, the massive vessel tore free from its docking clamps. The ground shook as its engines roared, blue fire bursting from thrusters. With a thunderous cry of metal, the dreadnought lifted from the dock and rose into the sky. Citizens below gasped and cheered. Aliens watching from orbit froze in terror. The dead ship was flying. Elias gripped the console, his sightless eyes glowing faintly in the reflection of the ship's lights. The voice in his mind was no longer whispers. It was strong, like a companion. Beside him, shields, weapons. "Ready," the boy nodded. "Protect them. Protect my people." The dreadnought answered with fire. Beams of energy erupted from its cannons, brighter and deadlier than anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Enemy ships exploded like sparks in the void. Fleets scattered, their formations breaking. No commander could hold steady against the fury of a warship reborn. But Elias felt no hate inside the ship. Its voice was calm, protective, even gentle. Defend, not destroy. He understood. It did not want to conquer. It wanted to shield, to protect those who believed in it. And Elias would be its guide. The alien council watched in horror as their fleets fell apart. "This is not possible," shouted one delegate. "The ship is unstoppable," another whispered, "and it belongs to humanity." Some demanded retreat. Others demanded total war. But none could deny the truth. A blind boy and a ship long dead had just changed the balance of the galaxy. The battle raged on. More fleets jumped into orbit, desperate to overwhelm the dreadnought. But each time, the ship met them with shields, strong as mountains, and weapons that cut through steel like glass. Ilias's body ached, his mind burned. The connection to the ship drained him, but he refused to let go. He could feel its strength flowing through him, and his determination flowing back into it. Together, they were not just boy and ship. They were one dot at last. The remaining fleets broke and fled into the dark. The sky cleared. Silence returned. The dreadnought floated above, Arden Prime, glowing like a new star. Humanity had not just survived. Humanity had awakened a legend. Inside the command chamber, Captain Lyra placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. He was pale, exhausted, but smiling. "You did it," she whispered. Elias shook his head. "We did it. Me and the ship." The dreadnought pulsed softly, as if agreeing with him. Across the galaxy, messages poured in. Some racers begged for peace, others swore vengeance. But all of them remembered one thing. The galaxy had abandoned the dreadnought. Only humanity had stayed, and because of a blind boy's touch, the miracle had returned. Later, when Elias stood alone in the command chamber, he placed both hands on the console again. The ship's voice was calm, steady, almost warm. "Friend, Captain, human." Elias smiled through his tears. "You were never broken," he whispered. "You were just waiting for someone to believe in you." The dreadnought's lights pulsed in answer, like a heartbeat that would never fade again. And for the first time in history, the galaxy understood the truth. Humanity's greatest strength was not its weapons, not its armies, not its fleets. It was the simple, stubborn touch that refused to give up.